Hello, 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 and welcome to a special edition of Reality Rights. I am author Ellie Alexander, and I'm here with my chauffeur, aka
the tech guy.
We're doing what are we doing this week?
It's Reality Rights, the road trip edition.
The road trip edition, which makes me think of Road Rules. I'm totally dating myself here, but Gen X, if you know, you know. That was core quality television back in the day.
And I should say, like, if there are any tech issues, it's all up to her this week because I got to keep my eyes on the road.
Yeah, you're driving and we're podcasting. Well, it seemed like a great way to bring you darlings along on the experience of what it is like to, have a bookish and just getaway weekend, which is something that we do very often. And in fact, I would say a vast majority of my stories, my plots, my characters, ideas, future book ideas have happened in this very car while driving thousands of miles over the years, right?
Yeah, well, and living in the Bay Area, it's very easy to get, from where we live in the South Bay to LA is just about 5.5 hours with stops, which is nothing because if you've been following us for any amount of time, you know that road trips are kind of our thing. Especially living in Southern Oregon for several years with a son who ran cross country, we'd drive 3 or 4 hours round trip to watch a 15-minute race.
Always, exactly. Yeah, so we were on the road trip down talking about all these plans that we had for our little getaway. And most of them did not come to fruition in terms of books. And so we were talking about the fact that this would be a great opportunity to discuss the idea of work-life balance, especially when you love what you do. I love what I do. The tech guy is always up for any kind of book adventure, and you're such a part of all of my writing. But then how do you find balance in that? So that's what we're going to chat about today.
Yeah, well, and this is one of the things, right? Is like, I guess when it comes to using time, we enjoy road trips, and we've done many of them over the years. And how much book stuff have we done while driving?
I mean, that's all of what we've done, basically, right? So on the drive down, we have this new project that we want to launch for 2025. And we scoped out our whole clan. We visited a bunch of indie bookstores, and we realized partway into the plan that it was just going to be too daunting to pull off this weekend. So we pivoted. But I think that's sort of one of the first talking points is being realistic about what you take on. Because I think when you're an author, and most of us as authors are doing it solo. Hopefully we have like a supportive person like the tech guy in our lives, but we don't always have like a full team of people like any other business. So you have to treat your writing like it's a small business. And so trying to figure out ways that you set goals for what you want to accomplish and also you set realistic goals, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm not always the best at that because I work a full-time job outside of this, and I'm usually the one that's like, let's do this and let's do this and let's do this, and the list just grows and grows and grows, and then it is really easy for it to get out of control fast. So this time, what we usually do is you tell me like we can't do all that, and typically I'll be like, yes, we can, and then I'll realize no, we actually can't.
Definitely cannot.
Not at least not in the time that we want to do it. So prioritization is the key. Sitting down and understanding like what you want to do, what you have to do, and make a list, and then prioritize from there.
Exactly. So and we were brainstorming all of the things because this is the first week of January. Also, can we talk about the fact, like, I don't know if you can tell from the background that, and now the sunroof. I can't do that at my Irish, but yes, exactly. And, skin cancer. It is January in California, and as you can see, it's a beautiful sunny day. On the drive down, we were prioritizing what we really want to be the first quarter focus for things that have been on a list to get done for a while now. So for us, that's refreshing the course. My Mystery Series Masterclass, we have a bunch of new content and updates that we want to add to the course, but carving out the time to make that happen.
That takes a lot of time.
It takes a ton of time, but it's a priority.
Right.
So then it's like, we have to balance, all right, well, what gives in the process of that? We have this new idea for a project that we want to do with indie bookstores all over California and wherever we visit. And that was what we were going to touch on this weekend. And I would say we turned it into more of our research, right?
Yeah, it was more of a research trip, but it actually ended up, you came up with an even better spin on what we had originally planned. So now I'm super excited about it. I mean, I was excited about it before, but now I'm really excited about it. But also know that we need to put more planning into it, and then how like a dedicated we have to have, there's a speech I got that we have to have like a solid plan going in and have things mapped out so that we don't end up getting frustrated or just not being able to do what we set out to do.
Right. And that's that whole work-life balance because everything bleeds in. So we came down to LA to go to the Rose Bowl and celebrate New Year's Eve. And we're like, well, great. While we're there, we will launch this book project. And that is so fun. It always is something that like fills both of us with excitement and enthusiasm. And then it's the reality of, okay, well, and how do you also just take a break in the middle of that too, which is not something that I'm always good at because I have so many creative ideas that are all just like banging in my head. And it's a matter of time, which goes back to prioritizing and realizing that some stuff is going to have to get cut and or wait.
Right. And we realized that on this trip, right? We had set out, this was, just a fun trip for the two of us. And then we set out, like on the drive downward and got all this book stuff that we want to do. And then we realized, wait, but we were having fun. And so do we want to do all this work? Even though we love doing the work, that goes back to the balance thing but wait, we just want to like go to 6 coffee shops a day. We did visit some amazing bookshops. Oh, can we talk about what happened?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we had a list of a few bookstores in LA that we wanted to visit, and they did not disappoint. Let's just say that. I will share videos of our two favorites. I would say the first one that we went to was the last bookstore or last bookshop, last store in downtown LA, and oh my gosh, it was magnificent.
The bookstores, I mean, first of all, we went in, turned left, went into the art and rare book room.
Yep.
And it was just meant to be because I walked right up to the first shelf I was looking at. There was this big green hardback book, and I pulled it out. And as I pulled it, it just kept coming and coming and coming. It was really long and super heavy. And I was so excited. On the cover, it just said Ed Emberly. And for anyone that doesn't know, Ed Emberly was an artist back in probably 60s through 80s. And I grew up, one thing that Ed Emberly did was he taught you how to draw and to do fun things like make thumbprints on a page and then turn them into something and everything. Anyway, I found this book. I was so excited. Had it under my arm, and I was set. I had already found my treasure, so then we proceeded to explore the rest of the shop.
Which is just if you're going to LA, make sure you add it to your must visit darlings because it was incredible. 2 stories and there's a book tunnel. I mean, there are so many, I can't even begin to discuss it on the podcast because it's just a treasure trove of delights. But then we had our first real celebrity sighting.
I was in the film and television section, just standing there looking at the books on the shelf, and a woman walked up and was standing right next to me, and she was looking at this stuff on the shelf, and her a friend of hers or acquaintance or somebody came up and she said something to her friend, and I was like, there was a British accent, and I was like, "Whoa, that voice sounded really familiar." And I looked over, and I was standing this far from Emma Watson, Hermione Granger.
Hermione in the flesh.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. But she had a hat on, and it was clear that she just wanted to be at a bookstore and browse stuff. So I just slightly turned toward her and said, "I think everything you do is awesome." And then I said, "I'm going to let you keep browsing books," and just walked away. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's so sweet." It was just like, it was just so cool.
And then, of course, he was
I know. Then I said, "You have to get down here now. Emma Watson's down here." Yeah, that was fun.
We met Hermione Granger in real life. And of course she's at a bookstore. Like, that only makes sense, right? This is all proof that you should always go to your local indie books. That's a magical thing that's happened. I got the text from...
Magical, I see what you did there.
I got the text from the tech guy, that's a mouthful, as I was going through the book tunnel that Emma Watson was downstairs and I better get down there ASAP. So, I mean, I'm in a book tunnel at a bookstore and Emma Watson is there, like,
It was amazing.
top tier.
So that was like we had gone there intending to do all this work stuff, and that was kind of a sign, I think, from the universe that we needed to just kind of balance it out and just enjoy ourselves.
It was a good sign from the universe that we need to do that. That's exactly it. And I think so. This goes back to the idea of how do you balance doing what you love? Because this job doesn't feel like a job. Like, this is part of our job right now. Having a weekend road trip where all the way home I have been taking. I'll pull these out for the darlings who can't see, but I've got my little Swift list and I'm plotting out the first of a spin-off series that I'm going to launch this year. So that kind of stuff is happening. It doesn't feel like work. It's super fun, but it is work. And so I think for any darlings out there who might be writers or creatives in any way, shape, or form, this is a universal experience that you have because we also usually pull energy from doing this kind of work. How you pull back in and make sure you protect some of your time. So like last week, I had an entire week of doing nothing but reading. Literally, I was on the couch in different parts of the house on my little cozy reading chair in our room. I had my new stack of books. I had some fun, cozy drinks. I just did nothing other than read. And for you, like, you kind of checked out and played video games.
Yeah, and just like it was nice having a little time to not think about work or book work or anything, and just have fun. Hold on, time out. Look at that view.
Oh my gosh. It's the Pacific Ocean. Like,
The sun is just like shining right on. Oh yeah.
yeah, it's
Sorry. Sorry for anybody that's experiencing winter right now.
I know. California is a little different in January. We also just passed a fruit stand for like a giant bag of oranges for $5. So there's that.
I
Yeah.
know. I was gonna stop, but we're podcasting.
We're podcasting instead. So just trying to find ways that you, I don't want to say force yourself because it's not like it's hard for me to read, but instead of spending the week off that I was having for vacation, doing plotting, thinking about this, I was intentional about making sure that I had just a chunk of time to do absolutely nothing else. And I also think then that idea that when you're going out and about and I talk a lot about this in my Mr. Series masterclass, that it is important to get out in the world in whatever way that is for you. It doesn't have to be a 5-hour road trip. It could be going to a park that you haven't visited in your neighborhood, going to a new coffee shop, a library, wherever, just to give yourself a new perspective and get yourself out of your headspace, especially if you're not feeling it as far as writing and your creative energy goes. And at the same time, making sure that you're balancing how much time you spend doing that. So I can't do book math on what the answer is to that. I think we have failed miserably sometimes at that.
Yeah, at what specifically? The
Well,
failure, because we failed at a lot of things.
yeah, we have failed a lot of things. I would say,
Learn from all those failures.
even just like we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, the idea of on the drive down, we're like, all right, well, we were
Yeah.
here for 3 days. We're going to go to the Rose Bowl. We're going to spend a full day and a half, 2 days of just going hard on all of the content that we want to start for 2025, while also realizing, wait a minute, we have these other priorities. So I don't think we've always been great at finding a way to initially like map out our schedule, because it does feel like it's so enmeshed in our personal life.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just like understanding that, you can't fit everything in. Whenever even if we had set out to try it, like we said we were going to try and get some work stuff done while we were on this trip, being okay and being comfortable with making that decision of like, you know what, I can do this later. And it's still, we're not giving up on our goal of doing this. We're changing the timeline, because we actually did some of the research. We still got some of that done and we had fun doing it, but we needed time. Like, it's been awesome to just kind of recharge creatively.
Yes.
So
Yeah, and so this feels like a funny time of the year in some ways to be talking about it, because I know many of you darlings might be setting a New Year's resolution or have already done that and you're saying like, okay, this is the year I'm going to publish my book. We talked about that on the last podcast. I want you to do that. And maybe one helpful strategy is to map out the things that you can't do and come to the realization of not everything is going to be done all at once. And the list of what you'll want to do is so much longer than what you're going to be able to potentially manage, at least initially.
yeah, and that gives back to the whole prioritization thing.
With that prioritization, like you're talking about, one of the things that we decided for 2025 is if we're working on the weekends on my book stuff, which we have to do because the tech guy has a full-time job and I write full-time. On our last podcast, we shared how many books I wrote last year, and I have even more books that I'm writing this year. So it's weekends and vacations like this where book stuff has to happen. But in the past, we've often like worked for a couple hours on a Saturday, worked half a day on a Sunday. So we have committed to making sure that we're like consolidating that. So maybe it's just like we work on a Saturday afternoon and then we take Sunday off.
Right. And not only do we consolidate it down for that day, but like if we're going to work a Saturday afternoon, go for a hike Saturday
Speed
morning.
check reported ahead.
And
US 101 North.
there's speed check. So, or if we work Saturday morning, we go out to dinner and go to a movie or whatever it is on Saturday night. So we're balancing that and not just committing one of our 2 days off during the week to just fully working.
Right. And I guess what I want the darlings and the new writers to take away from this is to have a sense that even at this stage in my career, where I've been writing for 15 years and I have multiple series published, the onus is still on us to do all of the other things that go into writing. And I think there's still such a myth that somebody else is going to do that piece for you, that once you write the book, everything else just sort of magically falls into place. And we're going to do a whole episode about how that is not true.
Definitely not true. And we will. I don't want to get into that now because there's a lot that goes into that. But it is important to know that, just for the purposes of this podcast anyway, that there's a lot of work that happens after you're done writing, and in my opinion, it's some of the most fun parts of the job.
Fine too.
They're also the parts that I think take as much or more effort than actual writing.
Absolutely.
Uh, because you can put so much work into this stuff and then just have it, just flop too. So, but it's super creative. It's fun to do. And but we'll get into the details on that stuff for the other episode. So
Yeah, we did an episode last year that was like everything that goes into launching a book. And so the next version of that we want to share is everything that happens after you launch a said book. And this is all sort of part of that.
right, right, yeah. Um, so that is something though that I think, yeah, I know you get questions about a lot of the time, and since we're talking about work life balance and stuff, that a lot of people, a lot of writers, most writers, I would say, though definitely most writers, don't have the luxury of having when it's part of that car hanging off the back of it. They don't have the luxury of just writing. They do work full-time jobs, and so how do you recommend that somebody that works a full-time job but wants to be a writer goes about it? Like, how do they achieve the balance?
Right. I think this, like, is setting some priorities at this stage while you are also setting your writing goals for the year. So, if that's 200 words a week, if it's trying to get a chapter written a week, if you are setting a goal to finish a book by the end of summer, whatever that is, carving out that and then taking those same chunks of time to know that you're going to need that for everything that happens after you're done with the writing. And then figuring out, like, okay, if I am, or for somebody who has a newly published book out in the world, that same sort of thing, like there's that initial excitement and enthusiasm. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it's never ending, right? It doesn't go away. So to find some strategies to map out, maybe you carve out 2 hours on a Saturday, if you're working full time, or you dedicate Tuesday nights to doing your social content, like trying to batch that in any way you can, which is what we have shared. We have not always been great about, and we're trying to continue to be better about. I think last year I really improved batching for content for sure. And I was really intentional about when I respond to email and things like that. I always want to respond, of course. But if I responded every day, I wouldn't get my writing done. So I did things like where I know that I'm going to respond to emails in chunks of time twice a week, because that's not going to interfere with my writing and coaching time. So doing the same thing, I think, like finding ways to be intentional about where you're putting your energy in.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and then they're um utilizing things like this. Like, I would really encourage if people don't do it
Darlings.
as a type of darlings, don't do it as a regular part of your just enjoyment and everything, is take a road trip.
Yeah.
Pick a spot that you've always wanted to go that's like, a 5 or 6 hour drive. And I know that freaks a lot of people out. It's not bad, because the beauty of a road trip, unlike an airplane trip, is you can stop as many times for as long as you want along the way. And so, like this trip from LA to back to Sunnyvale, we've already stopped in Ventura. I think we're probably going to stop in San Luis Obispo,
Yep.
which is one of our favorite places to visit. And you just you get to see so much, and we've built that into kind of the book work that we've done over the years, where you have a book talk in a certain place, and rather than fly, we'll drive. And we've found some of the most amazing things and made some the most incredible connections in all the towns that we stop at along the way. Intentionally going to different places, like that outdoor bookstore in Ojai.
Yeah.
We never would have seen that had we, well, we saw it on Instagram, but we never would have visited it had we not been on a road trip and decided, oh, that's only like a 45-minute detour to go over there and see it. So, I think I'm a big fan of road trips, but that way you get to work in some work type stuff with just something that's super enjoyable, and it helps you achieve that balance a little bit more.
Right. Or we're also trying to think of like, oh, hey, well, when we got in the car this morning, we're like, we have a 5 hour plus drive home. Like,
Right.
this is just time that we're in the car together. What if we do a podcast? Like, why not show everyone? And again, I want to always shut down that myth of like, we don't have a chauffeur. We're in our Subaru. This is not like some kind of fancy life as an author, which I still can't believe that people are convinced that all authors, are jetted around the world and picked up with bonbons and a bottle of champagne. Spoiler alert, that's not gonna happen.
It's yeah. We love our life the way it is. Happily, yeah. I don't want this chauffeur and the bonbons.
No, I definitely don't either. But yeah, if we have this like dedicated chunk of time, then how do we use that time while we're on the road?
I know. Otherwise, we have to just sit here and talk to each other.
No, I don't want to do that. Gross.
Yeah. No, that's like we have used that time over the years to develop a lot of plots, and I don't know if I already said it, but we've plotted many a murder on the road over the years.
Yeah, and even when Sky Guy was younger, our family trips were like this. They involved the same kind of thing that we're doing now, and he was part of the hut. So he has probably seen more independent bookstores than any other kid on the planet.
Yeah, well, and that was after the first several book talks and everything, that was something that we did intentionally, right? Is that we would go to wherever your book talk was, whether it was like the Hood River or something, we'd drive out and we'd get you all set up for the book talk. And then I would take him and we'd go find like the toy stores and playgrounds and candy shops and some museums, all sorts of fun stuff. So he kind of grew up like visiting all these great places. And then he turned it like, he learned to be like, oh, I got to see all this great stuff, but mom hasn't seen it yet. So then when you were done with your book talk, then he got to be a tour guide and show you around all the great things that he had, been able to see while you were chatting with readers.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I know this one will be all over the map, but it works because we're on a road trip. So we're all.
Sure did it again.
But there is something to be said, the old adage of like, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life again. I absolutely love what I do, but it is also work. And so I think that's the important key takeaway of this week's episode that yes, writing, like the fact that we get to create stories and make up fictional worlds or use the viewpoint that I'm seeing in front of me as a place to kill somebody in a future book.
Or going up into the mountains down.
Well, I know. I'm looking at that cliff right there when I'm thinking, hey.
They'll see it out. Actually, they probably could see the ocean there for a minute out the back. But
This is all so much fun. And it is also work. So figuring out ways that you enhance that work and embrace it and also not get
wait, darlings, don't freak out. We're going in a tunnel. It's not gonna it gets dark all of a sudden now.
Ooh, it's spooky. That was good timing. Tunnel time. Don't get sucked into the zeitgeist and the culture that writing a book isn't work. The actual act of writing is work, and then everything that you do related to writing is even more work, like the tech guy said.
Well, and that's a good point because, like, for me especially, and this is something you've helped me work on over the years because I'm admittedly terrible at it. Is that for those darlings out there, the prospective writers, the new writers, people who want to start writing, that have a job outside of the writing or book world, even if you love writing, like it is still work. And so you just have to take that into account that because one of my, I don't want to say flaws, but one of the challenges I face all the time is I do my day job and then I want to work on all this creative stuff, working for your book stuff and social content and website graphics and, all sorts of new projects and everything. But the thing is, and you're always like, but I don't want you to worry. And I'm like, no, but I love that work. I love it and everything. and it's true, I do, but at the same time, it's work, and so, if I get mentally exhausted during my day job, I'm not gonna be as effective, if I'm trying to then work every single night on book stuff or every weekend, all weekend long on book stuff.
Yes.
And so it's trips like this that, like I talked earlier about, like, or said earlier, which is to help me recharge creatively because I'm like, okay. And now that we've narrowed the list down of priorities that we're going to do, I'm like, okay, that's a manageable piece that I can work on without getting burnt out.
Yeah, because the burnout rate is going to be high. And I think it's really daunting if you are a new writer starting out and you know that like everything is falling on your shoulders. And that's always my like counterpoint to you, where you're like, no, well, I'll just work until midnight, 3 nights in a row. I'm like, no, you physically can't do that. You're going to completely gorge yourself.
That was like 20 years.
No, you're down. Come on, 9:30. Yeah, 9:30 is a nice time to go to bed, don't you think? No, but you just like not only will the work not be great, but you're gonna burn yourself out of our stuff as well as your work job, so
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, like, bad things can happen if you fall asleep with your hands on the keyboard of your laptop. So,
it's not the same as falling asleep with a book in your face, or it's pretty close.
might send some emails that you didn't mean to send. I
But
don't know.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess that is the big piece that I want Darlix to be aware of for this one, like, you can't do it all. You might wanna do it all, but you just can't, and that's okay.
Right, right. It is okay, and I think that's the hard part, right? Is getting to the point because it's taken me years to get to the point of like, well, no, I can't do everything. I mean, I think I realize that every time, but getting to the point where I can't do everything and I'm okay with that. That's when you can. The funny thing is, once you get to that point, you will find that you can truly be successful at whatever it is you want to do because you will bite off manageable chunks and then you will prioritize things so you're able to get things done uh, in a timely fashion rather than trying to do it all at once and having it take 10 times longer.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think it might be time to say, until next time from the road.
Till next time.